Hi, in this tutorial we're going to look at alternatives to radio buttons. As you can see on the sheet in front of you, I've got a couple of radio buttons here. It's a fairly familiar control that you see on web pages and forms and that sort of thing. Now you can put these on Excel spreadsheets, but if you want to make them work, you need to know about macros. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have a look at an alternative to radio buttons that doesn't use macros that you can then set up your spreadsheets. So let's look at an example. I've got two boxes on sheet 2 here, and I want to type Y in one box or other. And if Y is typed in one box, I don't want it to be possible to do that in the other, and vice versa. So that's what we're trying to achieve. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that with data validation. So the first thing I need is a couple of lists of valid values. So I'm going to have a quick look on sheet 3 and you'll see the lists of valid values that I've got. So if it is allowed that you put data in, what I want is somebody to pick either a blank or a Y. If it's not allowed that you put data in, then they should only be able to pick a blank. Now in order to use these two ranges, I'm going to name them. So first of all, highlight this one range. If you've not named a range before, you can see how easy it is. I've just highlighted the range, clicked in the name box, typed the name I want, hit enter. That's now named. Likewise, select the range I want, type the name. You'll notice that spaces aren't permitted in range names, so I've used an underscore character here. When I hit enter, this range is named not allowed. The range on the left is now named allowed, and as you'll see in a minute, we can now use those in formulas and dialog boxes instead of having to remember what the ranges are or whatever. So let's go back to our sheet where we want to put a Y in one box or the other. So starting with cell A2 then, I'm going to put some data validation on this, and if we go to the data tab, you'll see data validation. Now in 2003, if you go to the data menu, you'll find exactly the same command, data validation, and you'll get exactly this dialog box. Now we've got three separate sections to the data validation. The first one is, what do we want to allow in the box? Now I've got my two lists set up, so what I want to do is allow a list. And the source of the list, now normally you would just put a range in here, but what we're going to put in here is a formula, which depends on, now we're working on cell A2. Now if B2 has got something in it, then we want to use the not allowed range. If B2 is empty, then we want to use the allowed range of data. So here's the formula. Equals if, don't forget the equals sign, makes Excel realise that it's a formula that you're doing. Now I'm going to test to see whether B2 is blank or not, and I'm going to use the isBlank function for that. So there we go. If B2 is blank, then we want to use the allowed range, otherwise we want to use the not allowed range, and close the bracket. Now very importantly, untick this box that says ignore blank, because we want people to be able to select a blank value. Okay, so that's untick that box. Here's the formula. Now the other parts of data validation, you can put an input message. So let's call this select one box. Please put a Y in one or other box. And then if they do it wrong, we're going to put a stop alert on there. Other box selected. Please either put in a correct value or leave blank if the other box is filled in. Please either put in a, well, I think rather than correct value, I think we'll put in a Y, or leave blank if the other box is filled in. So there we are, there's the data validation. So the important thing really is this formula here. If B2 is blank, use the allowed range, otherwise use the not allowed, and make sure you untick ignore blank. So we're going to do exactly the same thing on the second box. So data validation, allow a list. Now this time we're actually putting the validation on B2, so we want to test whether A2 is blank or not. Equals if is blank A2. If it's blank, then we want to use the allowed list, otherwise we want to use the not allowed list. There we go. Again, untick, ignore blank, put the input message in. Please select a cell, enter Y in your chosen cell. Obviously it makes sense to have these the same on the two cells, but I didn't write the first one down, so I can't make it the same. And then if they do something wrong, error, please either enter a Y, or if the other box is filled in, leave blank. Okay. So there's the data validation. So now we should find, when we select a cell, there's a drop-down list that we can either choose a blank or a Y, and if I choose the Y, the drop-down list on the other box, the only option is blank. If I try and type anything in and hit enter, I get my error message. Hit cancel. So there we are, we're now in a situation where we can only type in Y into one or other of these boxes. Obviously the downside of this compared with a radio button is that if you decide you've put it in the wrong box, you have to delete that cell and put the Y in the other one. But that's not a great hardship, I don't think. Now the other thing that we could do, of course, is we could make it so that once one of these boxes is filled in, the other one goes grey, which is a sort of a visual clue to people that they shouldn't be filling it in. And we can use conditional formatting for that. So let's put some conditional formatting on this box B2. And conditional formatting in Excel 2007 is on the Home tab. If you're working in 2003, it'll be on the Format tab, the Format menu, Format Conditional Formatting. Now, 2007's got all sorts of clever rules in. 2003 is not quite so sophisticated, but for what we're doing, we actually want to do the same thing. I'm going to go straight to New Rule in 2007 and use a formula to determine which cells to format. Now in 2003, when you choose conditional formatting, so that's Format Conditional Formatting, you'll see that you get a dialog box, and on the left hand side of that there's a drop down box that says cell value is or cell is. You need to change that to formula is, and then you'll be able to get a box that you can then put this formula we're about to put in. So what's the formula? Well, we want this one to be grey if A2 is not blank. So what we need in the box is we need a statement that is true if A2 is not blank. Now we've seen the isBlank function. We can use that, which will give us true if it is blank, so we're going to use the not function to reverse that. Is blank A2. There we go. So that will now come up with true if A2 has got something in it, and false if it hasn't. So that's when this is true, this format applies, and we'll just make it grey. Okay. You may not have seen me click the OK out there because it was outside the visible view. And there we are, it's grey. And if I do exactly the same on the other dialog box, conditional formatting, new rule, use a formula, and obviously in 2003 that's format conditional formatting, and then change the drop down from cell value is to formula is, put the formula in, equals not is blank, and this time we're formatting A2, so we're checking B2, and we'll turn that grey. There we are. So now if I just delete this, when everything's empty, no grey. If you put a Y in, the other one turns grey, and you can't then put anything else in this dialog box. Error message. And just to prove a point, if I put a Y in this side, exactly the same situation. And there we are. So that's data validation to enable people only to put things into one box using lists, and conditional formatting to turn the other one grey when you fill something in. Now at the moment I've just worked with two boxes. If you're interested in finding out how to do this with more than two boxes, drop me a line and I'll try and set that up for you. You can find our contact details on our website www.ooth.co.uk, That's www.ooth.co.uk. So just search for not radio buttons or something similar to that, and you'll see this article. Put a comment in there. Okay, thanks very much.